welcome Taylor Flannery back to my YouTube channel. He has been here plenty. We have shared the boat, shared some lives, and he is ready to break down some of the Northwoods, uh, the bite this summer, how things have been going, and all the things. So, Taylor, I'll let you take it away. How have things been? I know that this season has been potentially record breaking for you. Has the trend continued since June and early July? For some reason, I'm struggling to hear you, Taylor. I'm sorry about that. Which is strange because we were conversing before with no issues at all. Taylor, can you hear me? Because I cannot hear you. Shoot. Not sure what's going on then. What the heck? Can you hear me now? Not so much. No. What the heck? We were chatting fine and then it just like dropped us. So I don't really know what the issue is or what to do about that. Oops. Hmm. All right, dude, I'm gonna drop it and then I'll start it up again because yeah. You hear me now or not? Mm, let's see. I don't know how you did that. What the heck? Hmm, let's see here. All right, we're trying to add Taylor back. I'm not sure what's going on, if we drop some service or what the issue is. See if we can continue here. What's up, dude? Can I hear you or not?
Yeah, we're good to go now. I don't know what.
I don't know either. It is what it is. Okay, so Taylor Flannery, welcome back. I appreciate the time in the boat, time on the lives, all the things. So, how has the bite in the Northwoods been? I know that in late June, early July, you were pressing on kind of a record-breaking season. So, how have things been?
It's continued in a kind of upward trend. I mean, we started off hot and heavy right off the gate out of our opener. We had probably 3 weeks ahead of schedule when we started our opener. So you had those fish
Hmm.
instead of being just getting out of spawn or halfway in spawn. We still had lower water temps or whatnot, but those fish had already pushed out of the weeds and they were on the mud chasing perch around. So we were fishing, 12 foot of water in the, just over muck and over bait and whatnot. And we were just hammering fish. But no, it's continued. It's been really good as of late. We had kind of a warm spell kick up there, and we actually were off the water for I don't know 5 6 days, something like that. We had 80 degrees and 82 degrees, and it was just like a bath water out there. But now we're starting to get a little bit colder nights, and we're back down to 74 to like 76, 77. So fish have been absolutely firing on like main lake rock structure, weed beds, just all over the lake, and ripping rubber really aggressively and burning bucktails has been phenomenal. So it's a fun time of year, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna get to the Rip and Rubber program because, like, we were kind of on the same trend line there, especially some of the same baits. Because when you've been sending me snaps, I've been seeing a lot of swim fins, and swim fins have been kicking ass and taking names for me. So I was gonna ask you about how you've been working those and like what kind of cover you've been working those over. Um, that's like down the list, but that's okay. We can like hit it now. So um, I was gonna ask you about those. So where have you been working those, and then I'll give you my 2 cents, and we'll see if great minds think alike. I guess.
Well, that's I've been basically on main lake rock structure with them. So our boat is positioned probably like 12 to 18 foot of water and casting up onto shallow rocks. And like I said, with that cold front that pushed all those fish up onto the rocks, seeking the warmth and whatnot. And I mean, it's been that bait lands and you take 3 rips with it and it's in their mouth. So
Hmm.
it's been absolutely getting crushed. And every single one of them are head hunting that thing. It is just, they want it bad. So that has been a very, very good bait for us. I have reinforcements on the way. They're needed. So, um, yeah, I had to cyclops my other ones back together to get them to run, and um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty rough. I was taking rubber from other baits and putting them into the holes and all that, and melting them in, and yeah. So then
Yep.
you had to work with them a little bit to get them to run at that point, but they were still crushing fish. So yeah, he's got a winner there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's really interesting because like we're using those baits in similar applications, but different structure. Where like you're trying to because they stay a little shallower than like the bowfin, so like where you're keeping them up off of the rocks. Like I'm using it to keep it up out of the weeds, and they tend to run a little shallower. But I mean, we just absolutely wrecked with them the last couple of weekends. So Brady was kind enough to send me some of his private stash to like keep keep the fish happy because I think what was it 2 weeks ago? I think I ran through 5 of them in a weekend, and it's just one of those deals where rubber is rubber kind of thing. Like there's no way to control how the fish eat it or like what happens to it after they eat it because he sent me a picture of one of the guides that he knows that runs them, and he's like, "This thing's got 20 fish on it. Like, what's happening with yours?" I'm like, "They're literally smoking it out of the weeds, and they come up head shaking like crazy. And half the time, they're just head shaking with so much torque it like rips the tail right off. Like one of them, what one of them we caught like I was fighting the fish and I saw the tail like fly. I don't know what it was, 20 feet, 30 feet away, and I'm just like, well, I guess I guess that one's done but it's funny because like the application is similar to where we're fishing a lot of these like really raggedy kind of junk weeds at times, and it's like one of the few baits that you can keep up and out of it without it getting like bogged down in the weeds themselves. And yeah, it's funny how that works. But glad that you've been on them. So is there any consistent patterns that you have developed through the summer, or is it just kind of you're following your standard trend line where you got your post spawn stuff, and then you have your summer peak, and then you have your good rock bite that develops later in the summer? I don't want to speak for you there, but yeah.
Yeah, well, early on, it was just that was a little bit different, whereas we were just a little bit ahead of schedule, like I had said earlier, or whatnot. But I would say from beginning of season until well, our bug hatch actually lasted a long time this year, probably like into the 10th of July, I want to say. So I was fishing primarily deeper, almost a cast or 2 lengths off of the structure that you would normally be fishing from opener all the way through that bug hatch, fishing that 20, 22 foot of water with the boat positioning and then casting over top of where all the bugs were and whatnot. But it's been pretty consistent it was pretty consistent on that as far as blades kind of fired up right as we had a heat spell there, but it was still, position of the muskies and how they were setting up was exactly the same. Otherwise, rubber was really good. Dive and rise was really good early in the year. Otherwise, now it's kind of back to what it should be per every other year. You get
Hmm.
into late July and August, and the rock bite really fires up on the main lake structure, kind of your classic, musky structure kind of stuff. So That makes it pretty easy, I don't want to say easy, but pretty predictable. Like the other night, we popped 9 fish. I think we went like 9 for 13 on hooked fish, and I think 6 of them we were within a cast or two when I was like, "Hey guys, there's going to be a fish right here," and we stuck one. So that's really really nice when you can pretty much call your shot based on wind direction and kind of where the little inside turns and that sort of things are in the rock bars. So this is a fun time of year.
Yeah, I'll second the calling your shots thing. Like 2 weeks ago, when we were out there, it was like it. The weeds had not quite topped out yet. I think like last weekend when we were out, they were a little bit more topped out, but when we were on them, it was like you could basically like see the inside turn in the weeds and be like, there will be one sitting right there, and then you could cast to it and like rip twice with the swim fin and just get absolutely smoked. It was honestly ridiculous because and it honestly like it shows a lot about musky behavior and how they position in just like the most predictable way because it's like we have these weed stretches and you know where these fish are setting up on these weed stretches and it's like I know that one is there, it's just whether or not as we pass it does it want to do anything. And I think like the windows in terms of the day, because I was with Connor, so he just goes into Terminator mode and we're out there all day long, and it's really interesting when you have that length of time on the water to see like when those windows open up, when they close, and sometimes it's completely random. Like we've had windows the last couple of weeks where there's no moon, there's no nothing, there's no weather that's really happening. About the only thing that we can surmise is just maybe the wind direction pushing some current or something like that, and then that's when they decide to go. It's very strange, but I mean, they go. So I don't know. I'm sure you see some of that in your neck of the woods too, especially with peak temps this time of year.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, the other day when we were on fish, like we had a north wind for, what was it, 3 days in a row. So, I
Hmm.
mean, that is definitely pushing all the plankton in and into those little kind of areas and then around like the tips of the points and whatnot. And that's bringing all the little bait fish. And then, I mean, up the food cycle it goes. So,
Right.
yeah, that just, it definitely helps on positioning and where they're going to be at to be efficient on the water.
You mentioned something about perch earlier, which is actually super interesting because, like, when we fish together this spring, it's like very obvious that a lot of our water bodies do not have perch. So it's just really interesting to hear how you talk about like positioning your boat and the way that you pattern fish based on them, because their behavior is just like totally and fundamentally different than the prey species that we have here in Iowa, where we're focusing mostly on like bluegills, crappies, or depending on the lake, maybe even shad. Like the perch dynamic is a totally different thing. And like some of the lakes that we've been fishing lately, have bullheads in them, and that's like a big prey species. Which some of the lakes in Iowa, don't get me wrong, have bullheads, but and probably most of the ones that we musky fish do, but it's not like the prey species kind of thing. Um, so anyway, I found that super interesting because perch is just something that we don't have here, or really have to really think about in terms of patterning the fish through the seasonal progression where you have the bluegills, the crappies, the perch, there it's just there's an added dynamic there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, our perch spawn is like, I mean, just after ice out kind of thing anyway. So um I guess in Iowa when we're fishing down there, we're actually somewhat doing the same thing where like you're
Hmm.
targeting, those spawning crappies or post spawning crappies where they're set up or how how the muskies are interacting with them. That's basically the same thing as what we're doing that early season like that with our perch. So, and you can also get a bite with when the bluegills go in shallow. Obviously, there's some muskies are in shallow with them as
Hmm.
well as out with the perch and all that good stuff. But yeah, it definitely it helps to kind of pattern them and
Do they
once you kind of figure out what everything in the system is doing, that's when you can actually be a better musky angler.
what do So when do perch spawn? Do they like what water temps and like what areas do they use? Because it makes it easier for us here in Iowa if like our forage species. Oh shoot! One of the cats got it. I told you it was going to happen. If one of the forage species, like crappies and bluegills, like we know that those go up shallow to spawn and they do their thing, and it makes it easy to kind of pattern the muskies based on that, based on how they funnel out, based on like when they funnel up and how long they linger in their spawning areas. Like what do perch do? Like I legitimately have no idea because most of the water bodies around me and like growing up through my childhood, we don't have perch.
Yeah, it's generally like the old bulrushes and the really shallow, that kind of sandy and whatever area. But it's usually early spring. I mean, right in with like what like maybe I think it's actually before the walleye if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it's
Oh,
right in early spring like that. So it's as soon as the ice goes out. I mean, you got your northerns are doing it, and the walleyes, and then probably the perch.
so
But
okay, so you're talking like
yeah, and
low
then as soon as
40s kind of stuff. Like they're one of the first.
yeah, it's gotta be something like that, don't quote me on it, but, they're definitely way earlier than the crappie and bluegill spawn.
So that's like super interesting because I mean, you guys don't have a pre-spawn bite, but in some of those places in Iowa where you can fish the pre-spawn, like now hearing that, like places like Clear Lake and why those fish position as shallow as they do, like Clear Lake has a ton of perch in it. It makes a lot more sense why that pre-spawn bite is a lot more accessible and effective in some of those places. Whereas like some of the lakes I fish down here, that pre-spawn bite is kind of like maybe they're there, maybe they're not. But if the perch spawn that early, it makes sense why those fish are shooting up shallow in those places where the perch are present, and you can fish them in the pre-spawn versus where there aren't perch. So, well, I just learned something. So, thank you, Taylor. I appreciate that. Uh, so what have been some of your best baits this season so far? I see like tons. Hammer jerk has got to be up there. I've seen some of the swim fin, a lot of I don't know, maybe the pit bull, maybe the Dusa. I'm trying to remember all the Snapchats because I get tons of fish catches from you, and it just like makes me jealous all the time. But
Yeah, I would say early season. Well, hell, like opening weekend, I think we caught like 14 fish on a hammer jerk. That's Nick Ambrose. He's out of Eagle River. He only sold like 140 of those baits during show season. But that's what we were crushing on in Iowa, and it just continued. I mean, that was my confidence bait. After seeing what it did down there, brought it up here, and it continued. Got an awesome video that like 47 and a half boat side that
just
was
nuts,
just
dude. That's so
that
dumb.
was awesome. But yeah, our fish don't do that. But no, it was cool. But then I ended up I actually my tail on that one kind of started wobbling or whatever, it caught in the net and all that good stuff. But Nick has it right now. He's doing surgery on it, trying to bring it back to life for me. Caught a lot of fish on that thing, so I can't complain about that.
hmm
And then once I lost that, I was kind of like a lost puppy. You have your confidence tool, and um, I try, like your normal dive and rise stuff. Um, but the one I settled on was actually the Pandemonium SRJ, just because it's got that nice wobble and the hang time, same as what the hammer jerk does, except the hammer jerk gets just incredibly stupid and shoots up to the side and turns sideways and just crazy stuff. But
Yeah.
that SRJ then put, I mean, probably 25 fish in the net right after I broke the hammer jerk. So that one was pretty epic. And then um, I would tell you that we got a warm spell and the dive and rise bite just completely stopped. Then it was right after that, it was bucktails and rubber. And once again, the Hunzy tails, the 7/8 bangers just absolutely have been crushing fish. And then actually, Musky Mayhem came out with a Mimic 9. That one is a single nine Colorado blade, and it
hmm
just thumps like you wouldn't believe. But I caught a lot of fish on that one as well.
That model's
Um,
jointed, right?
it is jointed, so it kind of
Okay.
somewhat swims a little bit,
hmm
which you actually got to put a little piece of shrink wrap on that hook. Otherwise, it'll ball up, with the tinsel and whatnot, and then it won't
Oh,
swim anymore. It'll still work, but it just won't do what it's supposed to be doing.
yeah, I've got
Um,
some of those jointed ones from Dadson. I need to throw those more than I do, clearly.
yeah, yeah, it's a good bait, and then actually the 13 too. That's got a heck of a thump.
I
I
believe you.
haven't thrown that one a whole bunch, but um, definitely. Definitely gonna be a good one, either nighttime or, fall fishing or whatnot, or some big wind in the summer here, or early fall pattern. But, um, I would say then pit bulls obviously were really good. Caught a lot of fish on those, during that bug hatch, fishing a little bit of deeper water. They get down, they head drop, they walk side to side really nice. The chaos mid medusas caught a lot of fish as well. And then, of course, we already talked about Brady's swim fin. That
Mhm.
thing has been just
It's just
stupid. So,
it's just really
yeah,
dumb.
yeah, I'm pretty excited to get a box full of them and be able to run them again and get some more fish on them for them.
Yeah, there's something about those and the head drop into those pockets, those weed pockets, rock pockets or something where it's like you can work it and it's like darting back and forth and then you can like get it to just like and then they just cannot stand that when you do that. When it just like drops head first in there, it's just I don't know. There's really no other rubber like it, like a boot tail rubber or a swim bait rubber. I mean, there's tons of effective swim baits and there's tons of effective rubber, but nothing that unless you put like 2 ounces on a mid Medusa, you're not gonna get the head drop like those things have. It's just yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah. Come in stock, you can. That's about as heavy as a head gets.
mhm,
But I mean, really, like a Susie sucker, I guess if you could, weight that a little bit in the head, you could
sure.
snap that and get that same action. Maybe not quite as wide of a walk with it with the head drop, but um, definitely that's a one of one kind of bait.
Yeah, and I'm sure Brady uses some different rubber in there because I know that I like his rubber a lot because it's soft enough that you can get some of the stretch and some of the craziness out of the action. I've never thrown a Suzy sucker, so I can't speak to like what that feels like or whatever, but it's definitely softer than like the Chaos rubber. It's probably not quite as soft as like Innovations rubber. It's a pretty happy medium between the two, if I'm being 100% honest.
Yeah, and I mean it holds up pretty well too to the teeth.
Hmm.
You might get one fish on one and it's just the
Yeah,
harness is hanging out of them. But
right.
yeah, I mean that one, it probably caught 11 fish before it was Frankenstein, so
Hmm.
um as long as they don't, shoot that tail off, rip the tail off, you're pretty good with that one. But just once you start welding it up and you start putting a torch to it, then it gets even more, plow, whatever.
Yeah,
um
pliable.
yeah, yeah, that's the
Mhm.
word I'm looking for. But, yeah, then it really darts around and moves around a little bit more too. But, no, it's been an incredible bait. Anybody that doesn't
I
have one is definitely missing out.
yeah, I the what was I gonna say? The there's 2 things with the swim fin that, like, kills them basically, and one of them is if the tail goes off, obviously, which is not something you can necessarily control, and the other one is if, like, you get, like, a random tooth to, like, that front weight, and then it's just, like, you can't do anything because like, if you're ripping it, then the harness just pulls through, and it's just, like, bad luck, but, you know, I the one that has caught the most fish, I think, has, like, 6 fish on it for me, before it died, so it's just any rubber, that's just part of the deal, and I think that's kind of why I gravitated towards the bowfin juniors is because like the toads, I had the same issue with. Like you might get 1 or 2 fish out of those toads, and then it's like, well, that's bunk. Like the soft plastic is great until it's not, and that's coming from a guy whose third biggest fish is on a toad. So I mean, it's just you take it for what it will. But I appreciated your perspective on the SRJ. That thing has been getting stuff done for us too. Whether it was like in the spring with clients for me or like this weekend or the past couple weekends with Connor, I handed him a bait and he's like, "Well, how much is this SRJ?" And I'm like, "I don't know, it's like 60 or 65 bucks." And he's like, "That's ridiculous." And then he started working it, and he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, this thing's good. I'm like, yeah, Connor, it's resin. It's not like wood. I think that first SRJ I have has like over 20 fish on it. So it's just one of those deals where sometimes the money for the bait is worth it, and definitively the SRJ is one of those baits. So it just is what it is. Yeah, I've got like questions here, so I'm just kind of like reading through them to see. So, what type of water have you been fishing predominantly this season? Have you been focusing on like bigger water for bigger fish, or like smaller water for like numbers, or is it just like do you coordinate your day based on like what the clientele wants, or you know, talk to me about that, I guess.
Yeah, I hit everything. That's the glory of northern Wisconsin is there's such a variety. I mean, my home water is Pelican Lake, so obviously I spend quite a bit of time out there. That's
Sure,
3,600 plus, some change or whatever on that. So that's a pretty good sized lake, and that's one that it's got a lot of the younger year class of stocking coming up, as well as some big old healthy girls that have been around for a while. And
right,
then, some smaller lakes up north. There's some bigger lakes up north. Some even, I mean, some of the small ones, which have some absolute whales in them as well.
true,
Um, so, I mean, yeah, we kind of do a mix of everything. Um, I do kind of take, a client's perspective as, if they've never caught a fish before and they just want to see them, you go to a little bit of action water or something that that you can, have a few shots so they have a couple of opportunities at them. Because let's face it, people are going to fuck up. That's
yeah.
one thing that I tell everybody when they get in the boat, you're going to mess up. I don't care. It is what it is. These are all learning opportunities. But whatever. But yeah, so if you can get somebody like that, a couple more shots at one, that's definitely a bonus. And then you got you guys that have fished for 25, 30 years and they've caught how many 36-inch fish and they don't care to catch one of those. So those are the
Sure.
lakes that you're gonna take them guys out to, a lake where you might go out and get your butt kicked, but um you're also, you're gonna have a shot at a good one. So you kind of play it by the client and by the weather and by the moon, and I mean all these factors that kind of go into a day. And when you do go out and you make the wrong decision, you get your butt kicked, you go and jump lakes and try to make amends for that. So you do what you do to get somebody on the fish and having a good day.
Yeah, that's like definitively one of the biggest advantages, like you and Gus. Gus, I asked to join us tonight, but he's here with us in spirit.
Shout out.
He had league tonight, so thank you, Taylor, for joining me. But definitively, that is one of the biggest advantages that you guys have up there. Is like if stuff isn't happening, you can just jump lakes. Because I think like one day we were texting and you said you hit like 3 lakes before you had 5 or 6 fish in the bag or something really silly like that.
Yeah, I think we had jumped. I kind of remember that day, but we had jumped from what, one for about 2 hours, hit our prime spots, and we were right on the moon. And thinking that we were going to pound them, and just was not moving. The bait fish were down in the water column. Was not seeing what I wanted to see on the water, so we jumped off of that one. Went to a different style of water, hit that, and same thing. About an hour and a half, nothing really going on. Jump to another one, and I mean nothing. And then I'm like, well, screw it, we're gonna go and hit the final kind of on the stage. And then we ended up, I think we popped 4 or 5 or something like that, and one really good one. So yeah, it pays off to kind of go with your gut and just jump around and use the water that you have available to you and see if you can find a pattern.
I was gonna ask, what has been your biggest fish this season? Because it seems like up in your area there have been more big fish getting caught than normal, or maybe just Gus is like completely shooting that average, like just completely wrecking the normal average. But I was gonna ask you what your biggest had been so far.
Yeah, well, Mr. Gus, he finally got off the Eagle River chain, so he started finding some big fish. Sorry, Gus. No, I think we got a 48, whatever was the biggest one. We have had a lot of, that 44, 40, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but a consistent number of 44 to 46-inch fish showing up. Early in the season, it was a lot of smaller fish that, 30 to 36, your average northern Wisconsin stuff. But um, for a while it was, and Gus actually, we had talked about this, but it was kind of the same where it was either a big one or a small one. There was, those in between size fish were just not really showing up. But once summer peak kind of hit and we got kind of through, or into the end of that bug hatch kind of thing, that's when a lot of those 38 to like 42-inch size fish started showing up. So they didn't freeze out, they're still around, but I don't know what they were doing. But
Yeah.
um no, it's been a consistent year for all size classes, but definitely some big fish have fallen in northern Wisconsin so far, which is really good to see.
I'll kind of echo that in terms of over in my Hayward area based on the trips that I ran this summer. It was like I mean, we lost a few little ones, but like the ones that we actually caught that ate well or like we had really good boat side interaction with, like had shots at, whether it was a hot follow. I mean, those are bigger fish for the systems that we were fishing. So like um just basically like the clientele that I had, I mean, they were catching, you know, fish that were over that 40-inch mark, which is good for that system that we're fishing. But like we weren't catching a lot of those like lower 30s or seeing really a lot of those lower 30s. We were either seeing bigger fish and catching bigger fish or we weren't seeing anything at all. And it was just like those fish were just absent the system. I mean, I know that they were still there because we, lost a few of them, saw a few of them, but like in terms of catches, it was either we were catching the better fish in the system or we weren't catching at all. And it seemed like, and you can either like confirm or deny this in your area, but like one of the biggest variables for us, it seemed like in the summer is if it was juicy outside, like if it felt like fish should be and would be biting, like things were happening, and if it felt like things should not be happening or were off, then like nothing was happening at all. Like literally no pike, no bass, no muskies, just everything was sleeping. I don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. There were definitely, some of the days that, were really saucy outside, we did really well. But there were some days in there where, especially when you didn't have weather for a while, and you just had the consistency of, the bluebird days or the,
Hmm.
75-degree temps or whatever it was, and there was no fluctuation, in water temps, then it got really good as well. Um, but there was also a couple of days where it was really, really nice outside that you thought, you tell clients you're just going to pound them today, and then you
Hmm.
you catch one and see it one more. I mean, just not expected. So no, I don't know. It's kind of hit or miss, all over the place, I guess, but just kind of dependent on what water you were fishing. And some of the lakes that I usually do really well on up north, like Boulder Junction area, and that I just did not have the bite that I wanted. And fortunately, my other lakes or whatever that I usually hit were spot on, so that kind of saved that part of the season. But no, it's hit or miss all the time. It's musky fishing.
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, if there's been one like consistent variable for me throughout the season, whether it's been like fun fishing or like guiding or just whatever, it's been humidity. And and like it's funny because we were talking to Connor's dad last week and he's like, "Well, how can the fish feel humidity?" I'm like, "That's a great question because like apparently they apparently they can because whenever it's been humid this season, whether it was in the spring with you, like the biggest one that I put in the boat this spring was with you and Brian, and it got like super humid when that fish bit, and then like the air completely let out of the balloon shortly thereafter, pretty much the time that Gus hopped in the boat with us. But like if there's been one consistent variable, it's just been when it's been super humid, the fish have just like lost their minds. And that's been like down here in the Northwoods, and then back down here again, and some of those other places we fished. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's been consistent for you throughout the season, but it certainly has for me.
Yeah, there's definitely been those little windows where you can feel it in the air or whatever that, you're gonna
Hmm.
get bit, and whether it's on moon or not, those weather changes are huge. And Like you said, we experienced that in the spring in Iowa, and it's continued all the way through, up here and whatnot. So, um, that's just musky fishing, though, is being able to feel those little weather changes and
Right.
all that good stuff, and kind of know what you should be doing and what you should be throwing or your patterns or whatever at that time, and capitalizing on them.
Yeah, that's like, my brother-in-law. The first time that we got out this season, we got out for, like, probably an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours tops, like, during nap time for all the kiddos, and it was, like, super juicy out, and I was like we were, like, leaving, the cabin lagoon, and I was like, "We're gonna catch one today," and he's like, "How do you know? Like, these are the fish of 10,000 cats," and I was like, "This is, like, an 11 or 12 out of 10 in terms of just conditions today." We have fished this system our whole lives, like, we know where the fish are, we just gotta go put baits in front of them, and, like, it was 15, 20 minutes into the trip, and he caught one on his grandpa's bucktail, which was super dope, but, he thought I was, like, some kinda wizard or something because I told him that we were gonna catch, that day, and I messed one up in the figure eight, and it's like, we had 2 shots in 20 to 25 minutes, and it's like, when you combine a juicy day with, like, a moon event and the system, like, that might be one of the few times that, like, in terms of musky fishing, the odds are actually in your favor to have success, but those windows are so small and so limited that, like, it's it's tough to actually find those when you're on the water or, like, if you're trying to coordinate a day, like, it's a perfect example of when you pick the days versus the days pick you, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I was gonna okay, so I feel like we have to talk about the boys' trip to Claire. What were your thoughts, insights, takeaways from someone who's normally a caster trolling all day on a giant body of water when you're normally fishing like lakes that are between three and like, I don't know, 4 to 5,000 acres. So I'm gonna let you take that one.
Yeah, I can tell you, so St. Clair is like the coolest water. I mean, it's so blue. It's really really neat. Being out, in the open or whatever, that doesn't really bother me or change my mindset or nothing. But the trolling thing was definitely different for me. I can count on one hand the amount of times that I've even thought that, hey, I should probably troll right now. Um, I learned a lot. Got to see Jason and how he runs his program, and very dialed in. He had everything set, and they were working hard, and that was really fun to see. I actually think in that instance that trolling was probably more busy work than casting was. They were constantly picking weeds and pulling baits out of weeds and making sure everything was set and good. And all I was doing was drinking a few beers and having a good time with the boys. So that was nice. I didn't mind
Nothing
that
wrong
one
with
bit.
that.
Yeah. I will tell you that like dragging a fish in behind a boat going 3.5 miles an hour is not really my thing. Um,
Sure.
I didn't get any head shakes. It was probably the most uneventful fish that I've ever caught. Um, but it was still fun. It was a neat experience. And then of course to top it off with Gus getting that big one at the end there, that was incredible. Um, I
You
think we
ruined
were
my
all we
meme.
were all pretty. Yeah.
He ruined my meme. I gotta make an X now in his name and put like Max underneath of it, and then it'll be okay again.
There you go. There you go.
But then they'll probably go smack. He'll probably like smack a good one when they go up to, is it Bemidji or Cass for the PMTT, and
Yeah, I
then
think
then
they're
I'll
on
have to like
Bemidji.
then I'll have to like, I don't know. The meme will either be dead or I'll have to find someone else. Brian.
Yeah, you'll have to find some other schmuck that hasn't hit the 50 club,
I
huh?
guess so. Just like just lame catching. I mean, like I am the definitive example of you catch what is in the system. Like I've fished in Minnesota a fair amount. Like my biggest fish is from Minnesota, but like I fish in northern Wisconsin a lot, and I fish in Iowa a lot, and those fish just don't get to 50 very often here, and I'm living proof of that.
Yeah, and I mean, you've tangled with enough, 46 to 48-inch
Oh
fish and
yeah,
been in the boat with them and seen them, and, I mean, them are incredible fish for the areas you're fishing, so
totally.
I I think people put too big of a asterisk on that 50-inch number, and it's bull. Fish
No,
that's
it's
25
fun.
years old and hits 47 inches in northern and comparing to an 11 to 13-year-old fish that's 50 inches in Green Bay. I mean, I'd
Yeah,
I'd rather have that 48, so
I
that's just me.
it, it's funny you say that because like I was with one of my clients in Hayward, and I moved probably the third biggest fish I've ever seen on that system, and like it came in low and slow on one of KV's bucktails that he had extra weight in, and then it kind of like just came up and like nipped at it and then like took off, and I was like, I'm never gonna see that fish again the rest of the summer. Like I know that it's gonna like live there, but I won't see that fish again the entire time because that's just what those big old fish do. Like if you can trick them, you got them. But like if they kind of figure you out before you figure them out, you're completely hosed, and it just is what it is. Like they're old and they've seen it all. Like, those 46 to whatever it is, 50-inch, 52-inch class fish in northern Wisconsin, they have a level of conditioning that most fish, I feel like, probably don't experience in those areas. But it is what it is. That's what makes the challenge super fun. So, what do you do? You do it every day.
Yeah, and I still don't see very many 50-inch fish.
Yeah. I think you are like a quintessential example of like how hard that is. I tell people a lot of times that you are probably right up there, if not the best angler that I've ever fished with. And like for you to say, well, 48 is the biggest fish that I've come into contact with or caught this season, like that is a good example of how difficult it is in your area to get a fish, over that mark and like put it in the bag, especially not only considering how good of an angler you are, but also like how many fish you catch, how many bodies of water you're fishing, and how many days you are fishing regularly during a time of the year when their metabolism is ramped up and they should be eating more than any other time of the year, really.
Right. Well, I do appreciate the vow of confidence there, Matt. Um,
Totally,
I know
man.
you've been in the boat with some good anglers, so I take that as a big compliment. But um, yeah, it's just the area you're fishing, and you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. I mean, they're all special, and I mean, I have some clients are tickled pink with a 36-inch fish, and other ones, they don't care if they catch a fish. So it really, I mean, you get them their you get them their chances, you get them opportunities, and eventually those big fish, they will show up. They will make a mistake, and like Connor said, there it takes, they make one or two mistakes a year, and hopefully you capitalize on it when they do. So it's usually what does suck is that it is usually the big fish that find a way to shake hooks or get off or
Yep.
do whatever, and that's a heartbreaker, but that's all part of it.
Yeah, so it's funny because you fished a couple of these eastern Iowa lakes that I have as well. So like the big ones are not easy to come by. So I was fishing with Andrew this spring in the pre-spawn and moved an absolute tank twice in one day. And I was like, man, if that thing's not 4 foot, I don't know what is. And then like some random guy was like posting in one of the Iowa groups, and I saw a fish that he caught. He's like, the biggest one is 48. And I was like scrolling through the photos, and I was like, yep, that's exactly where that one was living. So good to know that someone got it, but it was not me. So but it was a really nice fish, and I think he was a budding angler, so that will go a long ways to ruining someone else's life when mine's already been ruined. So what do you do? And yeah, Connor's exactly right. Like they don't make many mistakes, and it's just like when he and I were fishing this weekend, we talked a lot about how big fish are just it's just bad math. Like the biggest fish in the system, you're talking like the lowest density fish in the smallest percentage of like size in a system that's anywhere between whatever 200 and 6,000 acres, let's say, and you're trying to get like 1% of the lowest density fish to eat at the time that you are there, and like assuming that those fish are actually active in the time that you are present on the body of water throwing baits in their faces, assuming that you are actually in a place to catch those fish where they are living, like it is just a really bad math equation. So yeah, kudos to you, kudos to you guys for tricking those old girls up in northern Wisconsin. So so you talked, I think it was, I don't know if it was the Muskies on Tap podcast, you talked a little bit about how they use live scope effectively, kind of to watch the baits while you guys were in St.
Mhm.
Clair. So like, can you touch a little bit about that? Because like, I don't know, like I called into Gus's podcast and I was like spouting off about live scope and how no one wants to touch on it. But I think that there are good like applications for it, and there are applications where it's either useless or unnecessary. And I know that you have been a pretty open, I like both of us, I you can go back to the one we did this winter. I think both of us have been pretty like not we've been pretty open about our perspective on live scope and like not really caring what other people think. And I know that you have been a pretty active advocate of not using it for muskies. But I was curious about in those situations what you thought of it, like utilized in an application where, like me personally, I think it is like that's an effective usage of it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan at all of people driving around and seeing, fish on their live scope and taking one or, not casting even until you see a fish. That's BS. That's not fishing.
Yeah, that's just
That's
stupid.
basically
Uh,
yeah,
like
it's basically
let's call
driving
it what
down
it
the
is.
road
That's
with a
just dumb.
yeah, it's driving down the road with a rifle and picking out your deer off the side of the road is what that is.
Exactly.
Um, so that's my opinion on that. But if you are using it while, trolling and you're seeing, lure depths and how they're running and kind of learning, what you're doing that way and learning, you can see, a certain footage of line out with this bait, you're running at this depth and all these things. You can learn so much from it. Same as like working along structure or whatnot, you can kind of walk your bait down, a weed line or a rock bar or follow the contour kind of deal with and kind of keep it in the strike zone a little bit longer. Um, Maybe even see follows, as they're coming in. I mean,
Hmm.
that's pretty incredible. Um, to me, like if you're working, say, a rock bar and you see one on side scan and whatever, you're gonna take a cast at it. Who in their right mind doesn't, right?
Right.
Um, but to find that fish and then follow it around with your live scope for a while, that's kind of BS too. But if you want to, if that fish hits your cone while you're working your structure, that you're using your knowledge to fish that piece because you believe that those fish are there for a reason, and that fish comes across your cone and you take a cast at it, that's fine. I mean, who in their right
Hmm.
mind
Totally.
doesn't do that?
Well, at that
But
point, it's
no, I
no
mean,
different than side imaging.
yeah, exactly. But no, I mean it was pretty cool how they were using it. They could basically they had a transducer out each side of the boat and they could see their lines that were running down that edge and they could see when it got followed up with weeds. They could see like if you had a little bass hooked up, it would just be going like up and down and they're like, "Oh yeah, there's a little bass or a walleye on there," but I mean otherwise that line would have
Break
ran for a
break it
half
in
an
before it
hour.
drowns.
Yeah, I mean, that line woulda ran for a half an hour or whatever,
Right.
without being changed out, so, I don't
I
know, it was pretty cool.
I'm with you. In my mind, there are three good applications for live scope, and Glenn in the comments is kind of talking about this a little bit too, where you've got one, trolling is good because you shorten the learning curve. Like you can see what your baits are doing, you can see what's down there, you can see how things are interacting. And honestly, it probably saves fish at times too. Like you're talking about with the bass and stuff. If you get a little fish that's not actually pulling the clicker, you can see that that thing is on there, and then you can do something about it before you drag it for an hour and a half, not knowing that it's there. The other application is jigging. Barry and I do that in the fall. But to be quite honest, and like piggybacking off of Glenn's comment, some of those times it's you don't even see the fish that want to interact with you. It's more of like when Barry and I are doing it, we're using it to find bait, the depth that the bait is hanging out in, where the bait is, and then the proximity to structure in terms of how we're going to jig it, how we're going to approach that structure. Um, and then it's more just like figuring out where the bait is, because if the bait is there, then the structure is there. um and then like kind of like what Glenn is touching on and what I experienced with Thatcher in Canada last year, you're utilizing that tool, like what you were saying, as you're going along. It's just another tool to visualize the structure that you are approaching, that is approaching you, so then you can avoid smoking your boat on some rocks that you may or may not know are there. Uh, that's more of Canada, but like B, if you're in northern Wisconsin where you and I fish, it's like finding those very specific contours of the weed lines themselves, you know, formatting your pathway on those. Do I think that you necessarily need live scope for that? And I'm sure that you're going to agree with this position. Like, no, I don't. I really don't think that you do. But like, those are the effective ways to do that and manage that. So yeah, the driving around thing is just it's just horseshit. Like, I don't like, if anyone thinks that it's not horseshit if you're driving around looking for muskies to catch, like, whatever. I mean, come at me. I don't even care. Like, I know that there are some guys in Minnesota that do it. Like, that's not that's not an internet battle you're gonna win. I don't care.
Right. Well, that's and I mean, yeah, like with the live scope and stuff, you can see the bait fish and you can do all that stuff. But just as like an example for, I mean, you don't need it. I mean, we went Donovan, Donovan.
Mhm.
Him and I, we met halfway in between at a lake between, the two of us. He's over, in
Right.
Oconto County or whatever. And I had never been on this body of water before. And it's deep, clear. I mean, crystal clear. You can see, 20 feet down. Um, Going out on that lake, basically got out there. We did not start fishing right away. We drove around an hour and a half. We just checked it out, scouted out the areas, found the areas with the most bait in them. Found that more of the bait was hanging off like the hard to soft bottom transition on this deep rock bar, and ended up out of the whole lake. We decided that that's where the congregation of bait was, so that's where we started pitching. And
Mhm.
within, I don't know, 10 minutes, Donovan had stuck a nice, 30, whatever, 37-inch fish or whatever on Musky Mayhem grenade. But yeah, I mean, that's all you got to do. I mean, you go out there, you drive around, you use your down imaging, you use your side imaging, whatever you need. I mean, that is plenty of a tool to be able to figure out where those fish should be, and use your knowledge to know where you should be fishing. Um, to go out there with the live scope and just drive around and find one. That's I'm not here for it.
Well, and to piggyback off your point there too, like taking the time to, spend a little time doing the auto charting and those kinds of things. Like, you're a firm believer in that. We've talked about that before. But like, even this spring, we did it on one of the lakes we fished that wasn't mapped, and like, we had a pretty good like cognitive idea of how that lake was set up, and based on the depths and some of the structure that we had fished. But it was worthwhile to just kind of auto chart it, figure it out exactly, and then fish the structure as it laid out, as it actually was, versus us just kind of like, maybe it's like this kind of thing. So, and it only took us what, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes to auto chart it or whatever, and then it was fine.
Yeah.
So, or at least auto charting the structure that we were planning on fishing the most, where we had already contacted fish. I guess I should probably clarify slash specify um, with that. So there's a guy, Taylor, that asked about bucket list to catch a muskie, 3 or 4 rods and reels for muskie. I'm curious as to your thoughts on that, and I can give some thoughts on that too. So, what do you got?
Yeah, I would tell you just any so you if you're gonna have 3 rods, I would have one like XX heavy, whatever that may be, with like a 400 or a 500 size reel just for ripping those really big rubbers, the things like that that are really stressful on the rod. And then to have one like an extra heavy for like an all around, um, whether that's for smaller rubber or bigger bucktails or something like that, and then one like a heavy, and probably like an 8 foot, so you could do baits and things of that sort with like the small top
Mhm.
water or small bucktails. I really like the PC Fun 300 Alios. Those are awesome little reels. I prefer the 8 to 1 to 1. I don't with the smaller spool. I actually don't really use the low gear ratio. I think it's 661 they have or a 591.
I like the
I
six
do
six
like the
for
8 to 1 to 1.
bucktails. I
Yeah,
like the
and
six
see,
six to reduce torque on the bucktails. But
yeah,
the
and
lowest
like
gear I feel like is too low. It's like too slow. Sorry.
yeah, I actually like the 811 even with bucktails just because it has a smaller spool, so you're not
Sure.
really cranking in as much as you would on like a 400 size reel.
Hmm.
But those are, I mean, them are what are they, $80 or something like that for starter kits and things of that sort. And I mean, I beat them up every single day, and clients beat them up more than I mean you or I ever could, and
Right.
they've held up for the few years that I've ran them now. So absolutely love those little reels. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, I generally for rubber or blades, I like a 9 foot rod. If I'm going to be doing like twitch baits and glide baits and little diving rides, that's usually like 710 to 8.3 or something like that is kind of that happy spot for those rods. So
Yeah. I'll echo you on the rod selection for sure, and the reel selection as well. Like those, I mean, just for someone who's trying to get into it, like it is really hard to beat those PC funds. I mean, that's why I put my name behind it, is because it's like I think of myself getting into the sport, or myself in high school or whatever, trying to find quality gear on a limited budget. And it's, you beat it up more than I do, and I've had really good luck. The redesigned 400s, I have been just absolutely punishing the last 2 weekends, and it has been phenomenal. And it was getting punished before that in the Northwoods, and it's held up very very well. So yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily need a 400 size. It just kind of depends on like what you are wanting to try and um, accomplish, I guess, or where you are fishing or what kind of structure you are too. So there's a lot of variables there to flush out, but those 300 alios are fantastic. It's especially for the money. It's just ridiculous, to be honest.
yep.
Well, dude, I don't want to keep you too long. Any other things that you want to talk about or say that the Northwoods has been granting you in terms of fish or anything this season so far? I know your time is precious because I know you have a ton of guide dates the rest of the week. So I appreciate you for being here tonight.
Yeah.
Taylor, come back. I don't know what's going on. See if he drops out and then we'll add him back in. I'm not really sure what's going on. The Northwoods internet is not as good as it could be pretty regularly. So we'll see if he comes back. If not, I'll close her out on my own. Um, we've had a great conversation tonight, so I'm not sure what's going on. We'll see what happens here. See if I can add him. Oh, yep. See if I can add him back. See if he pops back on. Anyway, Yeah, appreciate Taylor coming out. I'm not sure why his internet randomly cut out there, other than the fact that sometimes the Northwoods is not that kind in terms of internet reception and all things. Also, if I'm being 100% honest, oh, there he is. Maybe. Hold on. Welcome back. Hey. Oh, I was wondering if it was an internet issue or what had happened there. Mine's getting hot too. I'm running out of battery quick. I don't know what it is about YouTube, but it runs it dry pretty fast. Right? Well, I appreciate you taking the time, dude, and good luck this week. Putting your nose to the grindstone. It sounds like it's a long one, but it should be a lot of fun. So, thank you again for coming on and lending your Northwoods perspective to the channel and all the things. So, I greatly appreciate you. If do you want to pump? Do you have any dates that are available yet? Are you going to do any ice stuff? Throw that out there, quick, Taylor.
right now. So that he wants to get patients and stuff. I do have probably 4 days maybe that I can fill it, and then fishing I will do a few ice trips. You know, if somebody wants to get out and catch some walleyes or pike and all the things, that's kind of that. But I don't do a lot of guides for ice season. That's few and far between. But if people don't mind going out and sitting in the cold and chasing flags around, I'll do a little bit of it. But otherwise, no, not too much.
Okay, awesome, dude. Well, thank you. If you want to get in the boat with Taylor, whether it's this year or next year, please feel free to shoot Musky Guarantee Guide Service message on Facebook. He just crested an insane amount of followers, I think at 10K now, which is just an insane, awesome accomplishment. So, congrats there, dude. Kudos to you for building an awesome community. And yeah, if you want to get in the boat with Taylor, do not hesitate. Shoot him a message. He is awesome. The guarantee is not a gimmick. It is a real thing. So I I have experienced that several times now at this point. So he's on them. Thank you again, Taylor, for coming on the channel. I appreciate you. Um, and yeah, I will catch you sometime in the Northwoods. If not, we'll hit it up this spring. So thanks, dude.
Yep, absolutely. Good chatting with you, buddy.
All right. Good luck this week, dude. See you, man.